grateful rising. I'm not my ancestor. This is often said by black youth. When black youth says, I'm not my ancestor, he says it with such bravado, as if it's something to be proud of, some type of an accomplishment. You're not your ancestor, you say? What if you were? If you were your ancestor, you'd be creating your path in life, making your mark on history, and creating jobs for young people. Lena Richards. Lena Richards was a chef, a cookbook author, a restaurantpreneur, frozen food entrepreneur, and television host from New Orleans, Louisiana. Lena Richards was born Marie Arena Paul. It's believed that her name Lena came from the name Marie. Marie Arena Paul married Percival Richard in July 29, 1914. Percival Richard managed her business accounts for her. Lena and Percival had one daughter, Marie Richard, who graduated from Xavier University with a degree in home economics. Lena Richard initially received her culinary education locally in New Orleans and later in Boston, where she attended the school founded by Fannie Farmer. Lena Richard graduated in 1918 and returned to New Orleans, where a few years later, she opened her own catering business, offering her services for parties, weddings, and debutante balls. Talking about her time at the school, Lena Richard told the New York Herald Tribune in 1939, quoted, "When I got up there, I found out in a hurry. They can't teach me much more than I know," unquoted. After graduating from the Fannie Farmer School of Cookery, she returns to New Orleans. In 1937, Richard and her daughter, Marie Richards, started a cooking school to give black students the tools they needed to succeed as business owners. As historian Ashley Rose Young writes, quoting, Richard's school targeted young black men and women. She sought to train them in the culinary science so as to give them a chance to make a career for themselves in a city that historically disenfranchised African Americans. In response to the increasing demand for her recipes, Lena Richards self-published Lena Richards Cookbook in 1939. The cookbook made her the first author to feature New Orleans Creole cuisine. The book not only showcased Southern dishes, but also included recipes for chocolate, waffles, asparagus, sandwiches, and tea dainties. Well, wait, now that says asparagus sandwiches. I never heard of that. But anyway, I'm not up north. A year later, Houghton Mifflin, a white-owned company, reissued Lena Richards' book with the new title, New Orleans Cookbook. Lena Richards opened several restaurants, Lena Eatery in 1941 and Lena Richards Gumbo House in 1949. Among Lena Richards' specialties were crawfish bisque, turtle soup, potato pancakes, stewed eggs, and oysters, a 16-pound fruitcake, and lamb chops, with pineapples. Lena Richards served 54 gallons of gumbo weekly at her 12 white tablecloth covered tables, defying segregation by welcoming both black and white customers. Now you listen to that. She had a 12 white tablecloth covered tables. You know, back then and maybe now, if you had white tablecloth on your tables, baby, you were in the grease. I guess in her case, in the crayfish, huh? Lena Richards traveled across the country to promote her book, selling 700 copies for $2 during a one-month trip. Lena Richards was featured in the New York Times and New York Herald Tribune. Lena Richards was recruited to be head chef at Bird and Butter Inn in Garrison, New York, where she worked for 18 months, starting in 1940. Lena Richards was recruited by Colonel Williamsburg to be the chef at Travis House, where she cooked for dignitaries and military leaders from 1943 until 1945. In 1946, Richards started a frozen food business, creating fully cooked packaged dinners, and were flown across the United States. The meals were prepared by Borden Fine Foods Company's Matard. Lena Richards and Marie Matthews, that's her daughter, were the first African Americans to host a cooking show in an age where few televisions were in households. On Sunday, November 26, 1950, Richard attended Mass before heading to a restaurant to meet a fan who had traveled from Los Angeles and ordered one of everything on the menu. After a long day of cooking, she reported feeling unwell and returned to her home. She suffered a heart attack early the next morning at the age of 58. In 2020, Richard was one of the 8 women featured in The Only One in the Room, displayed at the Smithsonian National Museum of American History. Black youth, you denied being your ancestor. Why did you do it? Production. Lock and load. LilyBell. Be encouraged.